Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Daily Dose. My name is Pastor Maddie, Elliot, and I serve as the Executive Director out at Luther Bible Camp in Alexandria. And it's my pleasure to be joining you this week for the Daily Dose. This week we're talking about something that's really important to my vocation as a camp director, and we're talking about the Effective Camp Research Project. It was done by an organization called Sacred Playgrounds, and the primary researcher was Dr. Jake Sorenson. And he was asking this question. He said, why is Bible camp an effective place for faith formation? Why is Bible camp a space that leads to faith for life? And he had 5 important findings. And today we're on number 4. When I was a young mom, something crazy happened across the planet. And that crazy thing was COVID. I was a mother to a young 2-year-old, and I was pregnant with my second child. And being a pregnant mom in the midst of COVID with a toddler, with a job, and in school, I spent a lot of time on a screen. I wonder if you did too, in Zoom meetings and trying to stay connected to the world around you while we were isolated in our homes. I was trying to keep doing my job, even though my toddler was now at home with me. And there were several instances where I was in a meeting that I felt like was so important I couldn't be interrupted, but toddlers don't really care about important meetings. And so I was doing whatever I could to distract him and keep him entertained while I focused on what I thought was really important at the time. And one of those times, maybe more than one, I would say several of those times, I said, Soren, here, take my phone. Do whatever you want with this phone. I have an iPhone. I don't know if you are iPhone users, but I think most smartphones work like this these days. There's scrolling that you can do. There's apps you can press. There's a million games you can put on your phones. There's cameras. There's timers. There's all kinds of super fun things on our handheld devices. Well, I didn't really think my 2-year-old could get into that much trouble. He was 2 after all. And after one of these meetings where I handed my son my phone, and I can't even tell you how many times that was, I'd probably be embarrassed to give you a real number of how many times I actually handed my son my phone. But one of those times I got off my meeting, I took a deep breath. It felt so good to refresh my eyes off of the screen. And I looked over at my son and I watched his little 2-year-old fingers scrolling through the apps. Not only did he know how to scroll, he also knew how to select, and he probably knew how to do a ton of other things that I wasn't even aware that he knew. And that was just from time spent playing on my phone. I didn't do any teaching on how to use a device. He just figured it out. And the reason he figured it out is because that's how these phones were set up to be. I think that I've heard this story. I wonder if you have too. When researchers were designing smartphones, they took children to see what was intuitive for people and how they engaged in a phone. Well, I think that technology is an amazing gift. It helps us be connected in a world during COVID that was isolated, sure. It helps us stay connected with friends across the globe. It helps us do so many things. And there will never be a time in life again where our phone isn't right next to us, where a device or a screen isn't right in our midst. I think those days are done. But it's my camp director hat that I'll put on for a second that says there's something so important to being unplugged. The 4th finding that Dr. Jake Sorenson had is one of the reasons that he found that camp is an effective place for faith formation is that camp is unplugged. We ask those campers to leave their phones and devices at home. We ask them to get out of their typical routine that they experience in their homes and in their daily lives so that they can tune in to what God is doing in their lives. We disconnect so that we can connect. It's something we practice at camp that we hope campers take home for themselves. And when I go to churches and I talk about how important camp is, I'll get a question almost every church I go to where a child will ask, well, what about my Snapchat streak? And I say, well, ask your mom to keep your Snapchat streak going, but leave your phone at home. It's really important. And sure, there's grumbling on that first night of camp, but on the last night of camp, almost every participant that we have that come through Luther Crest say, it was important, it was valuable, I learned something, it was good for me, that I was not on my phone. I don't know how many of you have teenagers in your house, but I think you probably can't imagine them saying those words to you. But when you practice it, you do have this realization that being connected to one another is so much more than through this device. So it's an invitation to you too. I wonder how you can unplug in your life so that you can plug in to what God is calling you to be. Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Dose today. We'll see you tomorrow.